Hey guys, received an email from a dude who described what sort of time he'd been having recently, when pretty bad time that he'd been having recently, and he said that a couple of the videos on this channel had helped him, and that had helped him through his rough time a little bit, and that's awesome, because I mean this channel is mainly just for light entertainment, to give me a giggle now and again. But as I've said on some of the more sort of maybe useful videos, that if it helps one person, then it's worthwhile. So the email I got from this guy describing what a terrible time he's been having, and then saying that a couple of the videos on this channel have helped him a little bit, made all the crap videos on this channel worthwhile. So all the time that's been spent on these crap videos was worthwhile just from his one email. So to that guy, I'd like to say thank you very much. And also to that guy, I hope you don't mind me making a video to respond to it and talking about a little bit what you told me, but I'll be very careful not to say anything to give away who you might be, so I don't invade your privacy. It's just that I think that you deserve a response because of what you told me. I think you deserve a response. And also I think when we have tough times in our lives, I think and we get through them, I think it's good to share them with other people, because that helps other people as well, you know. And a story like this guy, so for the rest of you, I'll tell you what some of the stuff that he told me is, in the last period of time, he lost one of his parents unexpectedly, and apparently one of his parents had been sick, but they thought he was going to be okay, the father was going to be okay, and then his father passed away. So that was unexpected and fairly devastating, as you can imagine. He'd also been having a fairly crappy time with his career, with his work. It sounds like he'd been screwed over by his work, and was having a bit of a hard time there, and not getting a fair deal there either. And just a sequence of things can sometimes happen. I mean, life can be like that, can't it? You know, it can give you difficult things to deal with, but if the timing's okay, if everything else is okay and some difficult thing comes up, it's more easy to be philosophical about it and go, well, you know, I lost my job, that's okay. If everything else is running smoothly, you know, not such a bad thing. But sometimes life can kick the shit out of you, can't it? And it sounds like that's what it had been doing to this guy. You know, he lost his dad, which was devastating, and then he had a whole heap of shit with work, and sometimes it can be like that, can't it? You know, I've been in places like that in my life before, where something shitty happens, you know, oh Jesus, you know, then something else happens, and Jesus, something else happens. You got to be kidding, you know. I remember laughing at a series of things happen once that were just you know, and you feel like one of those punching clowns, you know, the kids punching clown, the inflatable punching clown, and it's heavy at the bottom and it's inflatable like a balloon, and you punch it and it goes down and then pops up again. And I always feel like that when you go through tough times in life, you know. Sometimes life punches you in the face, and down you go, you know, and sometimes you just bounce straight back up again. Oh well, fuck it, let's go, you know, keep going forward. Other times, if you're tired and you've been worn down and you've been punched down a few times, sometimes you go down and you lie there for a while and go, fuck it, I'm not getting up again. Fuck it, every time I get up I get punched down again, I'm not getting up again. And you lie there for a while and you feel sorry for yourself, and you think, fuck it, it's just too much, I can't deal with it, fuck. And then slowly you turn yourself around and then you go, oh fuck, alright, I'll have another go. And you come back up again, you know, boing, come back up again, ready to take some more, you know. And it's just life, you know. It's Buddhists say life is suffering, and it can be a depressing way to look at life. It can, but it's probably a realistic way to look at life. It's just what it is, you know. It's just what it is. It's part of the deal, you know. Life's a whole heap of wonderful, warm, fuzzy experiences as well, and a lot of good stuff as well. But you know, the Buddhist way of thinking is that life is suffering, and that our suffering comes. The Buddhist way of thinking is that suffering comes from a result of wanting and desiring and everything else, you know. And again, it's a fairly hard way to look at life, but it is an element of truth in it, you know, because that guy did love his dad, and you know, we all, the people that we love, we'd like to have them in our lives forever, wouldn't we? You know, we really would. And it's that fact that he could love his dad so much, and wanted his dad to be in his life forever, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But it's because of that, when his dad passed away, he suffered. You know, and that's the Buddhist meaning, is that because we want things, and because we love things, and because we desire things, and you know, in that case, the guy desired to have his dad in his life for the rest of his life, like we all do. You know, we all want to have the people that we love in our lives forever, but when we lose them, you know, and that might be because they die, or they might be, you know, in the case of girlfriends and boyfriends and husbands and wives, maybe they leave us, you know, and we lose them because they leave us, and you know, for whatever reason that we lose them, and that's really, I mean, the Buddhist thing is that ideally they end up, you know, high-level Buddhist people end up not wanting anything, and they live really basic lives where, you know, I've been to Hiezan in Kyoto, and there's Buddhist monks up on the mountain there, and they just live really basic existence, you know, and a really hard life. They meditate all day, and they have nothing, you know. They've got their little robe thing and their shaved head, and they've got nothing, and they just, you know, have miso soup and rice and meditate, and they've got nothing. And the idea is that living like that, you know, there's no wanting, but of course most of us don't want to live like that. I'll put my hand up for not wanting to live like that. You know, I like my comforts, and it's because we desire our comforts and things, and our needs and desires are there, that we suffer. So for our friend that, you know, was having trouble with his work and things, you know, really, if he went and lived on a mountain somewhere in a cave, he wouldn't need a job. And the fact that he lost a job or that was having trouble with his job wouldn't matter. But of course, we don't want to live like that. Now, the point of this is, I think we can use, without going and living in a cave or living on a mountain with the monks, or, you know, giving up our worldly possessions and living like a hermit or something. Without doing that, I think we can still take something from the Buddhists, and in that when we are going through hard times, you know, first thing that we need to recognize is it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen that the people that we love, you know, that there's a good chance that a lot of particularly the people that are older than us, and sometimes sadly people that are younger than us, but the people that are older than us, our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and uncles and the people that are older than us, there's a pretty good chance that we are going to lose them at some stage during our lives, you know, and that girlfriends and boyfriends and husbands and wives, you know, there's a good chance that during our lives we are going to lose them at different times, whether it's because they've just left us, or because they've died, or because of whatever other reason. You know, it's just what life does, doesn't it? You know, it really does. And it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't mean that, you know, we don't suffer when it happens, but I think an understanding of the fact that these things do happen, and that change happens. Change is almost always painful. You know, losing a partner, losing a parent. Losing a parent's a toughie. Losing a partner's a tough one. You know, any sort of major change in our life, you know, being evicted from our apartment, or losing our job, or, you know, any sort of major change like that in our lives is painful and difficult, usually, because, again, it's our struggle, and Buddhists, again, would say it's because we struggle against the change, instead of going, that's life, and going with it, which is what a Buddhist priest would tell us to do. It's what happened. It's not good or bad, it's just what happened, is what a Buddhist priest would tell you, you know, but that's hard to do. But an element of that is pretty wise, you know. We need to accept, of course, that we're going to be suffering, we're going to feel pain, and we're going to miss that person that's gone and feel sad about it, but it's what happens, you know. And our friend there was struggling with his job, and it sounds like, you know, he's getting screwed over a bit by his employer, and, you know, that sounds pretty tough too. And, you know, and on top of everything else that's been going on, he's got other stuff going on as well, and on top of all that other stuff, you know, once you're down, that's the thing, isn't it? Once you're down, it doesn't take much to kick you a bit more when you're down, does it? You know, oh, a little bit more, oh, a little bit more. Come on, leave me alone, a little bit more. So, but I think, first of all, recognizing that it happens, like this is what life does to us, change happens. And usually in the future, when we get through that bad, shitty stuff, when we look back, we often find that it was okay, you know, that quite often, for those young people who are, you know, on their first girlfriend or boyfriend or first, when you break up, you know, you feel like it's the end of the world, but, you know, 10 years time, you know, when you've been through a couple more of those, you look back and think, no, I'm glad I didn't end up with that one. That person who I was broken-hearted about losing, you know, in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't stay with that one. You know, the one I've got now is better, or I wouldn't have been happy with that person anyway, you know, or whatever. You know, it's often we find that's the case, that whatever painful change we went through, jobs are the same. You know, I've lost a couple of jobs. One hotel I worked at when I was younger, I loved that place, and they knocked it down. They demolished it. So I lost the job that I loved, you know, and I was devastated. But it led to really good things, but ultimately ended up to me living in Japan and all sorts of stuff. It's what happens, you know. So, you know, it's part of the change thing. We just have to recognise it happens and moves on. And there was a few strategies that our friend applied. One was, I made a video once about having a plan B, and that it's sort of good for us if we've got a plan and okay, we want to achieve this, and this is what I want to achieve, and this is what I want to do. I think it's wise to have a plan B, and that just brings the pressure down. That means if you achieve plan A, you know, so in my case I wanted to go live in Japan, which can be difficult if you want to do it long term because visas and things, you know. So that was my plan, to live in Japan, but I had a backup plan. You know, the backup plan was I was going to stay in Australia and be a flying instructor. So that was my plan B, you know. And so I think it's always good when you've got a plan A. Now, as it was, plan A came off. But the pressure was down a little bit because I had my plan B, you know. And I do that all the time in my life. You know, at the moment I'm trying to do some business thing, you know, and I really want to do it. But if it doesn't come together, there's a few things I can't control. And that's life. There's a lot of things in life like that. You have a plan, but there's often things in life that we can't control, and we can do our best and we can do everything possible to make that goal happen. But there are things in life that can get in the way. And in my case with this thing is the same. There's a thing I want to do, but there are a couple other things that could stop it happening. And so as a result of that, knowing that, I've got a plan B. So then if plan A comes off, I can go with plan B. And our friend told me that he actually has a plan A, B, C and D. And that's pretty smart too. Because you're still going to aim for your plan A and you still want your plan A, you know. But he's got a plan B, C, D. So the idea is that, you know, this is what I want to do. And he's going to do his best to make that happen. And then if that doesn't come off for him, he's got a plan B that he's going to resort to, and that's what he's going to go for next. And it's good, have your plan B, C, D, plans that you want, that you'd be happy with too, of course, you know. And then that just takes the pressure right down. Then it's like, okay, well, look, if plan A comes off, fabulous. If it doesn't, I'm going with plan B. If plan B doesn't come off, I'm going with plan C. And if you do that, great, you know, he's got a plan D. And that takes the pressure right off then. You've got to focus, you've got something to think about. Nothing worse than if you put all your eggs into one basket, you know, and you're dead focused on one thing and achieving one thing. And everything, and I get this all the time, I hear people all the time say, oh, I'm putting everything into, I really want to come live in Japan, and that's great, but sometimes you can tell they're all in, they just got 100% focus on that, which is good, but you can just tell that if it doesn't come off, and some things like wanting to live in Japan, there's so many things out of your control, you know, you got to get visas and jobs and things, and some of those things, if they say no, there's not much you can do, you know, except go for your plan B. So you know, when we get these shitty things in our lives or difficult times in our lives, then that's definitely the way to go. Have our plan A, B, C and D, you know, or just plan A and plan B. That's really good to hear that he was using that and he's finding that useful. And I think just the Buddhist thing I was talking about with with the longing and desire and things, sometimes it's okay to step it down a bit. You know, it's okay to have that big goal, you know, the big goal, and I want $1 million, and I want to live in Japan, I want to fly airplanes, and it's great to have the big goals, you know. That's all good, and you can keep going for them. But I think it's also good to tell ourselves too that we don't need most of the stuff we want. You know, when I was trying to get a Japanese pilot license, you know, some of you followed that on the other channel, on the Japan channel. Damn, that's hard. And most of the foreigners who've tried to get it gave up because it's just bloody hard. It's really difficult, you know. And there's a really good chance that I wouldn't get it, you know. And then the radio operator's license was even worse because it was all in Japanese. And there was a pretty good chance that I was not going to get it because a lot of the other foreigners that have tried for it didn't get it. And so I really, really wanted to fly in Japan. I love flying and really wanted to fly in Japan. But if I couldn't fly in Japan, I'd made up my mind that that's okay. That's okay. I've got other hobbies that I do, and that's okay. If I can't fly in Japan, that's okay. And I think that's not a bad idea either. That, you know, we want this and we want that, we want this and we want that. But I think we need to, and good to aim for them and put all our effort into getting those things. But I think it's good for us to accept that we don't necessarily need a lot of these things. You know, our friend there with the job thing, he's stepped down, he's realised, you know, that he can survive on this, and he actually told the employer that he needs a certain amount of money to live on, and, you know, and that's taking a bit of a gamble too. That could end up resulting in him getting the money he wants, or it could end up resulting in him not getting that, or not having that job at all. But you know, that's not a bad thing to do either. Sometimes just throw the dice and have your plan B and throw the dice and say, okay, well look, this is what I want, and go for it. And then if you don't, just be prepared to accept your plan B. You know, I think there's a sort of a balance required here. You know, some people have this really all or nothing sort of attitude. You know, do this or die sort of thing. You know, and I think sometimes that's fair enough. But it can be a really unnecessarily painful way to live life. You know, and you see this, you guys have known people like this. You know, they get a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend and they just go in 100%, and they're telling you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person I met last week. He's perfect, or she's perfect, or something. They've known him for a week and they go all in, and you just know. And I mean, I know that's a nice way to live. I've lived like that too. You know, there's nothing like living with your sensations to the full, you know, and all your emotions and everything are all burning at 100%. But it's not a terribly logical way to live, and it can end up making life a lot more painful than it needs to be. You know, so I think I've never suggested religion to anybody as being a good idea. Again, if people want to, if people get some sort of solace from their religion and it makes them feel happier in their lives and things, fantastic, you know. But it's not my thing to recommend those things to people. But as far as the Buddhist thing, not really a religion, it's more of a philosophy. And I'm not in a hurry to go and live on a mountaintop with the monks, but I think some of the stuff that they say about this, interesting. Dalai Lama, different people have different ideas about the Dalai Lama, but I've read a few of his books, and it can be quite interesting. You can get some good things from that. So I think all the religions probably have some small part of them that's good, but I think the Buddhist thing, it's a philosophy, you know, it's a way of looking at life, and I think go 100% Buddhist would be pretty hardcore. Interesting, a lot of people have, you know, Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's most famous swordsman, you know, most famous swordsman, was ended up being Buddhist, and a lot of people do, you know. I mean, Steven Seagal, not really putting him in the same category as Musashi, but interesting that a lot of these people that have done martial arts type paths have ended up hardcore Buddhists. And there's a lot of people that I've heard about over the years that have ended up going down that path, and I can sort of see why, you know, without going and living on top of a mountain somewhere, which would be a bit hardcore, giving up everything and just living on miso soup and rice, you can sort of see why. You can sort of see why some of that thinking is useful, you know, and that if we recognise, I think it's perspective. It's putting some of these things in perspective. Some of these things that we think that, well, you know, that we feel are so important, that it just puts a little bit more, if we have that way of thinking, it's a little bit more, it's a philosophy, a more philosophical attitude towards things, so that when these painful things happen, you know, it's keeping them in perspective. You know, usually when people totally lose it, you know, and I've been through tough periods of my life where I've struggled to keep my shit together, and I've had people around me in the same position, and I think sometimes is when it's most difficult is when we lose perspective. And it seems like our friend from his email, I definitely got the feeling that he's been through a terrible time, but he also seems to have kept the perspective on it and looked at the big picture, and that seems to be a key to getting through the tough periods, is to keeping it in perspective and looking at the big picture, and being sort of analytical about it, like you're looking at your life and your emotions from the outside looking in. And I mean, that's how therapy and counselling and all that sort of stuff works. It's cognitive thinking. It's an awareness of your own feelings and thoughts, and keeping it in perspective. Sort of like having a little teacher, or a little Buddha, or a little. Well, that's probably why some people pray and things. But it's like having a little person keeping an eye on you in your own yourself, looking at yourself, you know, in your own mind, and watching what you're doing and your reactions and your thoughts, and just keeping it in perspective. Because no matter how shitty it gets, it always does seem to get better again. You know, it's a constant roller coaster, and our friend there really sounds like he kept going down and down. Every time he thought he'd hit the bottom, he had a bit more, and poor bastard had a terrible time. But inevitably after that, it does start to come back up again. I think if your perspective's right, it comes back up quicker. And our friend sounds like he's got a good perspective on it, and it sounds like he'll bounce back pretty well, and chances are life will get easier from now, you know. And of course he'll have tough times again, we all will, you know, but once and I think as you get older, there's not a lot of good things about getting older, but one of them is perspective, because you've been through so many. I've had my heart broken by beautiful girls so many times, you know, that it still hurts. Even if it happened today, it'd still hurt, but you get a different perspective on it because you've been through it so many times before. And crappy things at work, and money problems, and all the other shit that we get in our lives that make life difficult, you know. And it's a cycle thing. It comes back up. And I think it's when people lose perspective, it's when they really go down and they don't get up again and kill themselves, or, you know, go through terrible things, because they've lost perspective. If they kept a perspective on it, there'd always be another good day to have, and there'd always be another, you know, good thing to enjoy. So anyway, hopefully that ramble helped somebody. And to our friend, good job, my man. What you're doing there sounds like you're getting yourself through it really well. Well done. Well done. More videos coming soon.